I sit, here or here, wherever I want. Well, this head is much more comfortable, relaxed, and I get closer to you. I can't see out there. Oh, it's a full house. People are still coming in. You are an oh my house. Well, thank you very much. And here we are again in Las Vegas for our annual family reunion. Hello, family, distant as well as very close. Some of you I've gotten to know over the years, and we've met at many Star Trek conventions, Star Trek cruises, and bless your heart, a good number of you came to see what I call my legacy project, Allegiance, music on Broadway. Thank you. In San Diego first, and then Broadway, and then the Los Angeles run. It was a spectacular experience for me, and I hope it was for you. I know it was, because we heard the sobbing, and the laughter, and the standing ovation after each performance. So thank you very much for that support. And I am really grateful to the Star Trek fans, because all of this, the fact that I was able to finally achieve my legacy project, the story of my childhood imprisonment behind American barbed wire fences here in the United States by the United States government. It's one of the more shameful chapters of American history. And I've been talking about it, and we founded a museum called the Japanese American National Museum about it. And thank you very much, Tony, for your visiting. As a matter of fact, I donated my Captain Zulu uniform to the museum, and they immediately put it on exhibit in one of the glass cases. And the docents started to ask me whenever I went to the museum, we have people in alien costumes coming to the museum. Why is that? And I said, oh, I know. It's because we have the Captain Zulu uniform on display. And that too was made possible by the fan support, because without your support, I would not have had those opportunities to do the Star Trek movies and wear the Captain's uniform. And then I was able to do Allegiance, my legacy project, because we wanted people to understand how it was for my parents. I was much too young to really understand what it was. You know, the children are amazingly adaptive. I remember the barbed wire fence, sentry towers, but we adjusted, and that became part of the landscape. I got used to lining up 3 times a day to eat lousy food in a noisy mess hall. And when I had to make those midnight runs from our barrack to the latrine, searchlights followed me. For my parents, it was an invasive, degrading, humiliating experience. But to 5-year-old me, I thought it was nice that they lit the way for me to pee. So children adjusted, but the story was really that of my parents' generation, where they lost everything. Their bank account was frozen, their life saving was taken away from them. My father's business was taken away, destroyed. And I do still remember that morning when soldiers with bayonets on their rifles came to our home and ordered us out of our home. At gunpoint, American soldiers, U.S. Army soldiers, innocent people. We had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. We were innocent Americans. I was born in Los Angeles, and my mother was born in Sacramento, my father was San Francisco. 120,000 Japanese Americans on the West Coast were summarily rounded up and imprisoned, simply because we haven't looked like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. And yet, despite all the hate and horror and the loss of everything that we had, young Japanese Americans, right after Pearl Harbor, rushed to their recruitment centers and volunteered to serve in the U.S. military, like any young American. This act of patriotism was answered with a slap on the face. They were denied military service and categorized as enemy alien. Enemy, I mean, it didn't make sense at all. You know, how can you call someone who's volunteering to fight for the country, possibly even die for the country, call them the enemy? It was crazy. And what followed was even crazier. Alien. We were born, raised, educated. We were Americans. That's how crazy it was back then. And I've been an advocate for raising the awareness on that shameful chapter of American history so that we will not repeat that again. And here we are. We have not, well, we Americans, the people, have learned the lesson that fake man living in public housing on Pennsylvania Avenue, he has not learned. He is repeating that sin. And he's taken it to new depths. At least our families were kept intact. I mean, they didn't tear us away from our parents, but that man has been tearing children away from their parents, and not just tearing them away from their parents. The real malevolence, the evil of this program is that they scatter the children all over the country. I mean, why do that? The additional separation, geographic separation. And then when the court orders him to bring the parents and the children together, they are so pathetically incompetent that they can't bring them all together. It is a shameful policy that and that's called the zero tolerance policy. Well, that's zero intelligence, zero humanity policy. So much on the issue of raising the awareness of that imprisonment that happened more than 75 years ago. And the kind of support I've gotten from Star Trek fans has been fantastic. And particularly the support you gave us with your support for Allegiance, both in San Diego, New York, and in Los Angeles. So thank you very much for that, from the bottom of my heart. And my venture into social media has been another area where, bless your hearts, Star Trek fans again, all the generations, and it's too dark for me to be able to pick out the original generation that supported Star Trek when we were a low-rated television series. But that letter writing campaign already told us that you are passionate and determined and unrelenting, because we got a third season because of your letter writing campaign. So thank you very much for that. We got a third season. But your support has been so incredible, even lasting through a decade of the only existence of Star Trek was as reruns. But that's when we found our audience, the next generation of Star Trek fans. The first generation, if the lights were on, I could tell. It's the color of your hair, or lack thereof. But we love those shining peaks. You guys are the ones that really gave us that important support at the beginning. But now there are young people that used to say to me, they discovered Star Trek, watching Star Trek with their parents, with their dads. But now I'm hearing more regularly that they discovered Star Trek watching the show with their grandparents. So there again, that's the original Star Trek fan. And the thing about the exponential growth of Star Trek fans is that you guys multiply like triples. Generation after generations. So thank you very much. We are deeply indebted to all the generations of Star Trek fans and all the people that come from, or not the people, but the beings that come from other planets, because I know you're here as well, the alien people, the alien beings that have joined us here. And so I'd like you all to join with me on the next venture. Get your phones out and download what's called TraceMe. Are the phones out? Now go to the app store and download TraceMe, because that is my new venture as of 2 days ago. What I'm doing is expanding the stage on which we can get together. Here we are at the Rio getting together, but we have kindreds, fans in Poland, in Singapore, in Brazil, all over. And the conversation here on TraceMe can be personal, despite the great distances, and very candid. And it's going to be a civil conversation, because it is troll-free. Those ugly alien creatures that poison any conversation. You know, that's what we eliminate by going to TraceMe. And we're going to be able to have a very unguarded, I mean, you have to be guarded in other areas, because, you know, these hateful people, blind hate, they like to poison every conversation. And I've been the subject of a lot of that kind of blowback. But I'm tough. My skin, you know, as you can tell, I have lived the decades. I celebrated my 81st birthday just last week. I worked out a couple of hours ago in the Hotel Fitness Center, hugging and buffing. I'm trying to get my hubby Brad to join me, but he was the one that trained me for my first marathon. And yet, once we got together, he quit running. I kept it up. And now I quit running too, because I've got foot problems. Yes, you know, things happen over the years. And I've had surgery on my foot, and I've got a titanium hip. Can you imagine? Titanium. Not plain old steel. It's titanium. But that means that at airports I have to go through that special song and dance, you know, getting through security. So I'm told that this is a Q&A, and I'm dominating it with my conversation, but those of you who have downloaded TraceMe, we are going to have a lot more conversations like this, very candidly, forthrightly, and I'm all for a good debate. I like to hear different perspectives, and I learn from those conversations. A good debate is always educational. What I don't like is Yahoo know-nothings with blind hate. I mean, nothing else but evil, and that poisons the conversation, and that's gone with TraceMe. So I hope you will all join me in that conversation. Thank you. All right, now, how am I going to know who's going to be... Oh, there you are. And there you are. Okay, let's start with you over here.
Hi, George. I flew all the way from Anchorage, Alaska to see you.
Anchorage?
Yep.
I went there for a convention many years ago.
Fantastic. I heard that, actually. I went there.
I took my nephew with me there.
Oh, wonderful. It's a great place.
It is. He loved it. He was 7 years old. And he told me that in my whole life, the best trip with you, Uncle George, was to Anchorage, Alaska.
Well,
whole
Anchorage
life,
loves
7
you.
years.
That's wonderful. That's so cute. It's a great place. I am a member of the LGBTQ community, and I would just like to thank you for being so out and proud. You are an inspiration to me and everybody who are also out and proud. And I just wanted to thank you for all you've done. I adore you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. All of us who are fighting for equality are pulling at the same wagon. And now we have a new challenge. Let me tell you what just happened last Monday. Jeff Sessions, our Attorney General, the top lawyer of the nation, had what he called a Religious Liberty Summit. And he announced that he is forming a Religious Liberty Task Force. And they are going, and a major supporter of this task force is the Alliance Defense Fund. It's a Christian religious fund. And, you know, I'm a Buddhist, and I respect all religions. Because, I mean, we Buddhists, we don't convert, we don't proselytize, we don't go on missions. We have respect for every religion because life can be hard, has a lot of challenges. And whatever faith that helps guide them and gives them comfort through this journey called life, good, I respect them. But what Jeff Sessions and the Alliance Defense Fund means with religious liberty is Christian liberty. And you know, I respect Christians. That's the major religion of this country. And many, many people find that guidance and comfort on this journey. But to say that anyone opposed to that is their adversary is wrong. Because we have what's called the separation of church and state. And we have the First Amendment, which talks about religious freedom. And there is a clause called the Establishment Clause that says the government will not establish any religion, and they prohibit the government from taking sides on any religion because, and that's really religious freedom. Every religion is respected, and they won't take sides of one or the other. And that the government will not intercede on behalf of another religion. And Jeff Sessions is, with his Religious Liberty Task Force, is essentially advocating Christianity stepping in, and that they see as their enemy LGBT people and the right to women have control over their own bodies. Those are the two targets that they have. And so we are going to have more challenges coming up from this administration. I mean, this administration, not only are they conducting government on an evil level on the southern border, but with the Muslim travel ban and now with the Religious Liberty Task Force, they are actually, I use the word evil. Evil is what they're up to, and we are going to fight them tooth and nail. And now to my left. I like the lefties.
George, I know that a year ago you were quote-unquote excited about the fact that gay characters are being introduced to the Star Trek universe, in the case of Star Trek Discovery. So I'm curious to know if you've watched the show and if you have any specific opinions about the characters played by Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz and how their on-screen relationship was handled by the producers.
I think that's the way Gene Roddenberry would have wanted it. You know, it all began, I think it was in 2014, when John Cho, who's the new Sulu, don't I look handsome young? John Cho called me, and he told me that the writers of Star Trek Beyond want to pay tribute to you by making Sulu gay. And I said, oh, but I want to think about this. Making Sulu gay. I asked John, that's suggesting that Sulu was closeted all this time, which I was, because I wanted my career. I desperately wanted my career, and I knew I could not be hired if it were known publicly that I was gay. And so I hid it until 2005, and therein lies another story, which I won't go into right now because it'll make my response a bit longer. I said that's making Sulu, that's suggesting that Sulu was closeted all that time. And you say that's paying tribute to me, which is flattering, but the movie is going to be coming out on the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. 50 years. And that is a unique phenomenon. It's never happened with a TV series that became a movie series. And the tribute should be paid to Gene Roddenberry on the 50th anniversary, not to me. And if you really are paying tribute to Gene Roddenberry, you will honor what he created, because he created all of the characters on the original Star Trek as straight, because he had to. Star Trek would not be on the air if any one of us were gay, because gay was verboten back then. And so, be as original as Gene Roddenberry was, and Gene supported equality for LGBT people. He made all his characters straight only because he had to, in order to get Star Trek on the air. And so be as creative and as original and as innovative as Gene Roddenberry was, and create a new character, new gay character, who has his or her own gay history in the 23rd century, whatever the challenges might have been, or whatever the advantages may have been to being gay in the 23rd century. And so create a new character, and tell the writers that. And I hung up with John. And shortly after that, Justin Lin, the director, called me. And we had a nice long conversation, almost an hour conversation, where I did most of the talking. And he was, listening to me, agreeing, saying, oh, I see, yeah, I agree. And so I thought I had communicated that. And when the movie came out in 2016, I went to see it. Sulu had been out on a mission, and he came back, and there he is back at the spaceport. And there's a guy with a baby girl, little girl, waiting for him. And Sulu goes straight to the baby and hugs her and kisses her. And in the next shot, they're walking away, and Sulu's carrying the little girl. And that was it. The guy could have been his brother. The kid could have been, his friend's little girl. There wasn't even a kiss between the two of them. That was it. That was the bold breakthrough of the gay issue on Star Trek. That is not a bold move. It's just a little toe. Not even a big toe, a little toe. It was ridiculous. It's Star Trek Discovery that is finally doing it right. They are gay and proud and professional and full member of Starfleet and living together normally, and everybody accepts that. And that's the way I would like to think it's going to be in the 23rd century. So, yes, Star Trek Discovery is doing it right.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
On this side, I hope it's one that requires a more brief, capsulized response.
I don't know. George, of course, we got a chance to see your wonderful exhibit in Little Tokyo. It was extraordinary. Got a chance to see Allegiance. Oh, I tell you, I loved it with my friends. I just adored it. But I had two situations that perhaps you could help me with. I have a friend, Hiroko. She's Japanese. I have her from college. And so I wanted to see it, but she could not be here because she was in Japan with her sister who was ailing. And so I have a friend here who, her mother in her 90s was in the camps. And they don't talk about that time. And I wanted her to go with her brother and sister, and they could not go. And so I didn't want to press this because this is personal, this is serious. And so I know you have the video coming out, I believe, of the Allegiance, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so the thing is that I want these people, Hiroko and my friend Jenny and her family, to experience the beauty of your Allegiance. Would it be, how could I approach my friends who've been through this? Could I give them the video? Do you suggest how I would give it to them so they didn't talk about their family? And so, should I press this or should I leave it alone?
No. Please do, and bless your heart. Thank you very much for all that you've said and the support that you've given Allegiance, and you're wanting to share it. I think it's the right thing to do. Let me tell you, you know, the position of your friend is understandable, and many people of my parents' generation, you know, as I said, I was a kid, a 5-year-old. I was categorized as an enemy alien at 5 years old. I was as loyal as a 5-year-old could be at that time. And certainly I was not an alien. I was born in Los Angeles. My mother was born in Sacramento, California. My father was as proud as San Franciscan. He loved San Francisco. And yet they called us that crazy thing. And then they took everything from us and imprisoned us. And it was a very painful experience for my parents' generation. And I understand their pain. And I understand why they don't like to talk about it. And many parents of that generation didn't talk about it with their children. So when we were doing Allegiance, many younger Japanese Americans came and did see it, and they came backstage to tell me how much they enjoyed it and how moved they were. But and they told me that their parents were in camp, or their grandparents were in camp. And I'd ask them, oh, what camp were they in? Their faces are blank. They don't know. And I said, well, where was it? Was it in Wyoming? Was it in Arkansas, where we were? Or was it in Arizona? Idaho? They don't know. Because their parents, for understandable reasons, because it was so painful, they didn't want to inflict the pain on their children, and they didn't talk about it. But I think it's important to talk about it. You know, the Jewish community went through a Holocaust much worse than what we went through. Their camps were extermination camps. They were genocidal camps. We were just in prison, and everything was taken away. We were impoverished. But we weren't, well, people were killed because they went crazy. There were some people that, you know, the depression hit them, and it was, they became suicidal. But they didn't want to commit suicide. We weren't supposed to get near the barbed wire fences, but they started walking toward the barbed wire fence. And from the sentry towers, the soldiers aimed their rifles at them and said, "Stop or we'll shoot." And they kept on walking. And they said, "This is the last final warning. Come closer and we will shoot." And they kept on walking. And they were shot and killed. And they're not listed as suicides. They are listed as people who tried to escape and were shot. But our camps were not extermination camps. There was no policy to exterminate us. But nevertheless, it was a painful experience. And the Jewish community had an even worse situation. And yet, they talked about it with their children. told stories about it. They wrote books about it. They did movies, television shows about it, so that we will remember. And the phrase was never again. And that is important, to share that horrible experience, to prevent other people from being subjected to the same sort of thing. And I was lucky, I was blessed in having a father who was the man who suffered the most, who carried the burden, the pain, and the rage, and the humiliation the most, and yet was able to share. He told me about American democracy, and made me understand that it's important for all of us as citizens to be actively participating, because it's a participatory democracy. And unless we cherish those ideals of all men are created equal, all the other shining ideals of our democracy, unless we're in there actively participating, the people like this big person that's in Washington right now are going to do enormous damage. We have actively got to participate, and I'm participating as an activist, and as an actor, and as a teller of the tale, theatrically, in my writings, in my speech making. It is very important. So that would be a wonderful and important gift that you'll be giving to your friend with a video of allegiance. And hopefully that moves her to having a better understanding of what her parents went through.
All right, Josh, I want to talk about the episode Spectre to God. Why did you were able into the episode?
What episode was this?
Spectre to God.
Refresh my memory. This is like about 50 years ago, because this is the 52nd year. And not only is Star Trek old, but my memory is getting pretty old, and it needs a little assistance. Tell me more than just the title.
What I know, the Western episode.
What was the plot?
The OK Corral, Kirk and Spock, McCoy and Scotty and Chekhov were teleported.
Yes, what about this?
Why did you not appear in the episode?
Was I not there in that episode? Was that the second season?
Third season.
Third season. I guess the writers, I didn't appear in every one of the episodes. I didn't appear in a lot of second season episodes because during the hiatus between the first and the second, I was cast in Green Berets, and I was off on location in Georgia at Fort Benning filming the Green Berets. And I was supposed to be finished with that and back for the beginning of the second season on Star Trek. But we had bad weather and we got delayed, and my return got delayed. And so all the scenes that were, episodes that were written that Sue was in were given to a new character that was introduced named Chekhov. He got all of Sue's lines and then some. And so when I came back for Star Trek second season, about a half a dozen shows had already been done. And so that pattern of my absence from the bridge got established. And so the writers felt that in the third season too, there'll be some scenes in which I didn't appear. And I guess that Spectre of the Gun was one of those where they decided to save on the budget.
Thank you for your time.
Yes.
I'm Mr. Takei. I'm a school teacher up in Canada, and I've had two students.
Where in Canada are you from?
Grand Prairie, Alberta, if you're familiar.
I know where it is. Yeah. I have relatives in Canada. My aunt married a Canadian.
Oh, wonderful.
And I have Canadian cousins.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'll be going to Canada later this year and early next spring. working on a series I will not be able to tell you about yet because the legal part of it, the contract hasn't been signed, but I will be working on it. And this too is a mini-series, a 10-episode mini-series on the internment of Japanese Americans. And they're filming it near Vancouver. But can you imagine being in Vancouver, in Canada, in November, December, January, February, and I'm a Southern Californian. It is going to be murderous to send me there. And we're going to be in little barracks with barbed wire fences around us. I will be visiting your country, but not in the most pleasant way.
So yeah, well, I wish you warmth for that.
Thank you. I wish your warmth comes with heat.
Yeah. So I did a writing prompt that was actually one of your writing prompts, and that ended up prompting a student of mine to come out to me. So I just want to thank you for that, through that writing prompt that I had my English students writing. They managed to muster up the courage to finally come out to someone, because it's not always a good environment, even where I am, for that. So just thank you. I just want to say thank you for being such a strong person in encouraging people. It also made another Star Trek fan, so that helped me out quite a bit. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for being the unicorn out of the next generation, but also thank you for being the kind of teacher you are. You are a very good teacher to understand that your students need guidance and compassion and love beyond just learning intellectually. So you are the kind of teacher we need more of, and thank you very much. I hope you put in your class in your uniform too.
So first of all, I want to tell you thank you both for me and for my mom who couldn't be here today. We grew up in an abusive home and with an extremely conservative, strict father, and I credit a lot of our embracing of diversity and the life that I've been able to lead to Star Trek. So first of all, thank you for that, because I don't know when you were doing it if you realized how much it would resonate through the years, but it really has, and I appreciate that. The second thing, and what my question is about, is I work with college students here in Las Vegas, and I equate for my undocumented students, when they have to come and talk to me about being undocumented, I equate that to them literally coming out of the closet, because it's frightening and it's scary and they need help financially and personally, and they don't know how they're going to make it if their mom or their dad or their support person has been asked to leave the country, and they have a younger sibling who is also a U.S. citizen with no parent. And what do they do? Oh, and I work with engineers, by the way, so they're kind of important and we don't want them to drop out. But my question is, what would be the things you would want people from my generation to continue to communicate, other than sharing our advocacy and sharing the wisdom of people like you?
That's what's important. And that's what we all have to be doing, particularly because of this fraught times that we live in now. We have a real battle, a real struggle with this administration. And I am very optimistic that the residency in our public housing on Pennsylvania Avenue by that fake man is coming to an end very soon. I feel it in my bones. Investigation is starting to make itself. Manafort is now being tried, and he was the chairman of the whole campaign. And I think that this is just the beginning of the story. It is now going to be, and that's why that fake in that White House on Pennsylvania Avenue is getting so hysterical and so irrational. He's trying to divert attention furiously to something else, another issue. But we will stay focused on the issue at hand. and that is the special investigator's case. He is coming to an end very soon. I'm very optimistic. Yes, over here.
George, I just want to say thank you so much for your contributions to the LGBTQ community. I'm a gay man who's also Asian, so as a fellow dual minority, I wanted to ask you, what role did your identity play as a queer person, but also as an Asian American, did it influence you as the role of Captain Sulu? Because when you were Captain Sulu, there were not, if any, a lot of Asian American lead roles at that time. So I want to know how your experience, even in being Sherman camp as well as your gay identity, influenced your role, because it meant a lot to see someone that was Asian American Captain Excelsior, especially in Star Trek, be an underserved country, and be someone of authority like that. So I just want to say that meant a lot. But,
well, thank you, and good luck to you, because as I said, it's going to start, the struggle is going to start heating up soon with that Jeff Sessions occupying that position. I think I owe so much to so many people, and certainly to my father, who gave me great guidance. The one big painful regret I have is that I never came out to my father. He passed before I came out. But I'd like to think that he, particularly because he's been such a great mentor and guide and teacher in my life, that he would have understood. And he knew, you know, when I came back from Berkeley to discuss getting a diploma, I knew that I had a sense, he knew about my theater proclivities, and he gave me that guidance, where the important thing was the degree, the graduation degree. And I'd like to think that my father already knew, but he didn't, his respect to me didn't tell me that he knew. The other people, I had so many friends that were supportive who knew, and also my Star Trek colleagues. You know, actors are very sensitive people, and I never came out to them, but I knew they knew. For example, when you know, after getting into makeup, we all gathered at the copier to sit in the chit chat before we got into our costumes. And I was standing with Walter Koenig, sipping coffee, and suddenly he started going like that, you know, with his head, urging me to turn around and look. And so I turned around and looked, and a few extras were coming in, dressed in that tight Starfleet shirt. And here was this drop-dead gorgeous guy with great pectorals, you know. He had a fantastic chest, and the face was Adonis's face. And my heart stopped. And then I thought, Walter was the one that told me to turn around and look. So I turned around to Walter, and he went. So he knew, and others knew, and they were just cool enough to not talk about it, because they didn't, you know, they knew that if the word they started a buzz, then it would have been my career, and something would have happened to Sulu, and I would disappear. And so I appreciated their thoughtfulness, but also their helping me out. Gene Roddenberry, too, when I had that discussion as a closeted man, indicated he knew, and that he was supportive. So I owe so many people, but thank you very much for what you are doing, and you can be that kind of person to support others as well.
comments. The first thing I want to let you know is I used to be a bank regulator, so you'll appreciate this.
You used to be a what?
A bank regulator, and I was in a bank where they didn't have literally anything in the loan file. And when we asked them why, it turned out that, I'm really old, so they had no thing in the file because these were Japanese farmers who had gone to internment camps. And when they were released, every one of them, they said, came back and paid their debt. They based it on their character. They were all wonderful people. I don't know if you've ever heard that story, but I think it's an amazing story. And the other thing is that I was pleased to meet Jeannie Wakatsuki Houston and Farrell Tamantanar, so it's an honor to meet you. I wanted to relay those stories, but I also just wanted to ask really quickly, what is your favorite project?
My favorite project? Well, I go from one project to another. At one point it was Allegiance, and it was Allegiance that really got me seriously into social media. But my favorite project, and I made so many friends through social media, as well as, you know, my world was really made terrible by the trolls. But what I'm happiest now is that I am now venturing forth into Tracy, where we can have that same kind of good conversations that I had and relationships that I had on Facebook and others. But with Facebook, we can have a candid, forthright, personal discussion without having to be guarded and try to not slip and make some kind of mistake where the trolls can really make a big thing out of it and make life horrible. So Trace Me is my current big project. I go from project to project, and Trace Me I think is going to be a lot of fun. So did you download Trace Me when I said
I was up here, I didn't have my phone.
Oh. As a matter of fact, I don't have it either because it's in and out at the hotel. But we'll continue the conversation on Tracy.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for all listening. Oh, have we run out of time? Ah, alas. Well, we have another day to go yet, and have a great time. Enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a Bacchanalian weekend of Star Trek Bacchanalian.